What would you do if your money becomes worth less every day? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. We'll cover several chapters. An introduction to inflation. How inflation is measured. How inflation originated. The different types of inflation, and finally, we'll discuss the impact of inflation on the economy. Chapter 1. Inflation is a term you probably hear often, but what does it actually mean? The literal meaning of Wikipedia is a general rise in the prices of goods and services in an economy over a certain period of time. In other words, the same amount of money becomes worth less, and you need more money to buy the same things. For example, suppose you were at the store last month. You bought a kilogram of apples for exactly €1. Today, you're at the store again. You get another kilogram of apples, but you see that inflation has struck. You see that the price is now 1.20 instead of €1. The price has increased by 20 cents. Inflation affects everyone who earns, spends, or saves money, so it's important to understand how inflation works and how it affects the economy. Chapter 2. In Chapter 2, we'll delve deeper into what inflation is and how it is measured. Inflation is usually expressed as a percentage and can be measured by comparing the price index of one period with the price index of another period. Inflation can be calculated by looking at the price increases of a group of items that people often buy, such as food and drink, rent, or energy bills. By comparing these prices with the prices of the same group of items in the past, one can see how much prices have risen over time. Each country has its own inflation figures that are influenced by different things. For example, if there is a lot of demand for a certain product and there is not enough of it, the price can go up. But if there is too much of that product and nobody wants to buy it, then the price can drop. Chapter 3. Inflation is not something that has only recently emerged. It has been a problem in the economy for thousands of years. In the earliest human societies, goods and services were exchanged. There was no money, so people traded, for example, a bag of grain for a chicken. This is also called bartering. Later, coins were introduced, which people could use to buy goods and services. The value of these coins was based on the value of the metal they were made of, such as gold or silver. In ancient times, inflation often occurred because governments struck too many coins, causing there to be more money in circulation than there was actual value. This was often done to finance wars or to pay off debts. This resulted in a surplus of money and products became more expensive. In the Middle Ages, inflation arose because too much silver and gold was extracted from mines, causing the value of these metals to fall and the prices of goods and services to rise. Later, banknotes were introduced as a more convenient and secure alternative to coins. During the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries, inflation often occurred due to a growing demand for products, causing prices to rise. More banknotes were also being printed, causing there to be more money in circulation. With the introduction of central banks, this changed. Central banks are responsible for controlling the money supply and safeguarding the value of money. By adjusting interest rates and managing the money supply, central banks can keep inflation under control. A cause of inflation can be when there is too much money circulating in an economy, causing demand for goods and services to increase and prices to rise. This can happen, for example, when central banks keep interest rates too low and thereby bring too much money into circulation, or when governments spend too much money and thus increase the money supply. Another cause of inflation can be rising commodity prices. For example, if the price of oil increases, companies may have higher costs to produce products and may pass these costs on to consumers in the form of higher prices. Chapter 4. There are 4 different types of inflation. Cost-push inflation. This type of inflation occurs when companies have higher costs to produce goods and services. For example, if the costs of labor, raw materials, or energy increase, then companies will pass on these higher costs to consumers in the form of higher prices. This, in turn, can lead to an increase in inflation. Demand pull inflation. Another type of inflation is demand pull inflation. This occurs when the demand for goods and services is higher than the supply. This creates scarcity and drives up prices. An example of this is the housing market, where a high number of buyers can lead to higher home prices. Monetary inflation. The third form of inflation is monetary inflation. This occurs when the government brings too much money into circulation. This decreases the purchasing power of money and causes prices of goods and services to rise. One possible cause of this is when the central bank keeps interest rates too low and brings too much money into circulation. Structural inflation. Finally, we have structural inflation. This is a long-lasting form of inflation that arises from changes in the economy. For example, when demand for certain goods and services consistently increases, this can lead to higher prices and thus inflation. This is a structural change in the economy that is not easily solved. Chapter 5. Inflation can have a significant impact on the economy and our daily lives. High inflation can cause prices of goods and services to rise sharply, making it harder for people to afford them. This can lead to a decrease in economic growth and an increase in unemployment. Companies may also have higher costs due to rising commodity prices, which can lead to fewer investments and jobs. However, low inflation can also cause problems. If inflation is too low, it can lead to deflation, where prices of goods and services decline. This can lead to a decrease in economic growth and can encourage consumers to delay spending in the hope of even lower prices in the future.